Alright guys, and now I want to make sure we know all about X-ray attacks in chess. There is such a thing as X-ray defense, but if you know what an X-ray attack is, you'll get the defense part as well. So on the board here, we have a perfect example of an X-ray. One way that I picture an X-ray is just the same way that you would use it in a hospital. So imagine that my bishop right now is the X-ray machine in a hospital treating a patient. So here is the patient's skin, and the X-ray machine can see through the skin into many squares behind it, which is the bone. And in this example, which was taken from a world champion Max Euwe game, White actually uses X-ray to deliver a beautiful checkmate. So all that White needed to do was see that the bishop is attacking the square h8 and that we can actually sacrifice a queen. Here's another queen sacrifice for you guys to get the bishop out of the way so we can take with rook and say check and mate. So all because the bishop was looking through the skin into the bone. Okay, guys, so there are many examples of X-rays in chess. I'll show you two more so you get the hang of it. Let's put these pawns here so that black will have a few back rank problems. And now we'll put the knight on b6, a queen on b5, and another black rook on d7. And if you guys were looking at this position and just calculating pieces, from first glance, it's not that bad for black because both sides have a queen, both sides have two rooks, both sides have two minor pieces. Black is actually up a pawn, and his pawn structure is healthier because this bishop is not liking this two pawns. And by the way, here's an example of X-ray defense of the bishop defending the queen through the pawn. So if there was another piece attacking a b5, White would be able to defend it because he has two defenders and not just one, the pawn and the bishop. And talking about defenders versus attackers, there is the rook on e8. Right now, White is attacking e8 and he's attacking e7. But if you ask a beginner, how many attackers does White have on the square e8? The beginner would just say, oh, only one, only the queen. But if you ask a strong player, he'll actually say two because the rook is looking through the e7 rook into the e8 rook. And after queen takes e8, rook takes e8, the rook says thank you very much. That's where the X-ray came in, and that's the checkmate because black didn't have a window. Okay, guys, the last example I want to show is if the king was stuck in a corner with an unfortunate bishop on, let's say, g8. Now, White has a queen on h4, but it's not so clear how White is going to do a checkmate on this king. So Black has two knights. Black is looking pretty well right now if it wasn't for the X-ray attack on this king, on the Black king. Because materially speaking, Black is doing quite well. But unfortunately for this king, he's kind of stuck. Between the black pawn on h7 and the bishop on g8, the king only has the g7 square and nothing else. If only this bishop could look into this king through the bishop. Oh, it turns out he can, using an X-ray attack. And so the queen goes to f6, says check. And it turns out that the bishop cannot take because the bishop will look through the bishop into the black king. So bishop takes, and the bishop takes back with a nice little checkmate. Another queen sacrifice for you guys. So the queen was actually protected by the white bishop on b2 through the bishop on e5. So always remember, it's an indirect attack or an indirect defense through another piece of the opponent's, or sometimes even your own. And it allows for really nice tactics as we saw here, but it's really hard to see. So we have to look for pieces on the same line that can help each other out. For example, the rook and the queen on e8, as in the last example, when the black rook was on e7. That's an example of an X-ray attack. So guys, hopefully you can use X-ray attacks in your games.